This week on Africa Weekly, we travel to Egypt as it battles a deadly legacy of World War II, landmines. We head to Nigeria, where the government is driving locals to the water to ease road congestion. And we meet a marine conservationist raising awareness of the threats to wildlife caused by plastic waste. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. Zimbabwe's new finance minister, Patrick Chinamasa, presented the 2018 budget on Thursday, after the country's new government was sworn in earlier this week. The $5.1 billion budget, which is the first since former President Robert Mugabe resigned after a military takeover, must now be passed by Parliament. It includes a host of business and investor-friendly proposals, as well as plans to tackle corruption and waste. Liberia's Supreme Court has ordered the Electoral Commission to proceed with a presidential runoff that had been delayed for a month due to fraud allegations, but the court denied the request based on lack of evidence. At least 13 people were killed and more than 50 wounded in a double suicide bomb attack at a busy morning market in northeast Nigeria on Saturday. The attacks took place in the town of Biu, south of the Borno state capital Maiduguri, which has been at the epicenter of Boko Haram's Islamist insurgency. And in the south of the country, hundreds more Nigerian migrants have been repatriated from Libya this week, as part of a plan announced by the African Union to urgently step up the process. After a recent meeting of the task force, which also includes EU and UN officials, the AU pledged to send home 20,000 African migrants stranded in Libya within the next 6 weeks. Pressure has grown on the continental body and individual African states to withdraw their citizens from Libya after CNN broadcast a report showing black Africans being sold as slaves in the North African country.
They arrested me and put me in prison. So they imprisoned me. They did not feed me. They did not give me anything.
In the midst of a migrant crisis which has overwhelmed the already strife-torn country, Libya has launched a UN-brokered effort to hold elections with a campaign to register new voters. The North African nation has been in turmoil since longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi was deposed and killed in 2011, triggering years of conflict between rival governments and armed groups. French President Emmanuel Macron made his first official visit to Algeria on Wednesday, laying a wreath at a monument to those killed in the 1954 to 1962 Independence War, which left 1.5 million Algerians dead. Macron, the first French president to be born after conflict, said he came as a friend of his country's former colony. France is keen to build ties with Algeria, a key player in the fight against armed groups in the Sahel region. The most complete skeleton ever found of a human ancestor older than 1.5 million years has gone on display for the first time in Johannesburg. The discovery was made following a 20-year process to excavate and assemble the 3.67 million-year-old remains. The reconstruction process of the remains, known as Littlefoot, has revealed that the skeleton of the forerunner to modern man was far closer to that of humans than previously thought, and actually walked upright instead of on its hands and knees.
It's a battle that should have ended with World War II. But 75 years later, a deadly struggle continues in a northwest corner of Egypt. The enemy? Long-buried landmines that still pack a deadly punch. Today, some 2,680 square kilometers are thought to be contaminated by explosives left scattered following the decisive 1942 Battle of El Alamein. The Egyptian military's Western Desert Mine Clearance Regiment gave a demonstration of their meticulous mine-clearing work.
Each sweeper works his square area, and we plan our work for the next day. If the deminer detects anything during the scanning, he pinpoints the area with a red flag.
And the next step? Egyptian officials say the mines are standing in the way of the region's economic development, but they also exact a more human toll. At the Matruh Artificial Limb Center, funded by the EU and UN, doctors engineer artificial arms and legs to replace those claimed by the mines.
If someone lives in a comfortable setting, the artificial limb will stay in a good condition for about 4 to 6 months. But for someone who lives in the desert, like me, because I walk on sand and stones, maintenance is required every month or every month and a half.
In 2014, the European Union donated 4.7 million euros to anti-mine efforts in El Alamein. That led to a decrease in incidents, with just one so far in 2017. It also funded awareness campaigns. At school programs like this one, kids learn to recognize mines and the dangers they pose. While demining efforts continue, officials hope education can protect this new generation from the lethal remnants of the past.
Idris is an entrepreneur in Nigeria's economic capital, Lagos. Every morning he takes a boat to meet clients in the city's business district on the other side of the lagoon. A trip costs about $2 and lasts just 20 minutes. Travelling by car used to take him hours, so going by water has been life-changing.
I have to leave my house 4:30 a.m. so I will beat traffic on the road. So if I leave that means I won't sleep well. I get back home 10, 11 p.m. at night. Before I eat, before I take my bath, before I rest, before I play with my kids, I'll sleep around 12. 4 a.m. I have to wake up again.
The Lagos state government wants to develop water transport to tackle the traffic jams that bring the biggest city in sub-Saharan Africa to a halt every day. 30 routes have been identified and several new jetties are already under construction.
We're providing the environment, the enabling environment. All we need from the operators is just to purchase their boats and move on our waterways.
Located on Nigeria's Atlantic coast, Lagos takes its name from the vast lagoon that surrounds it. In recent years, a number of private companies have launched water taxi services. Former Merchant Navy captain Justin Ogunbayo is one of them. He hopes the new initiative will help him expand.
We started with like maybe 20 passengers, but later it started growing after we created some awareness, publication and other things. So I started with 2 boats. Now we have about 6.
The aim is to have 2 million passengers a day on the water, but locals still need convincing to abandon their cars for the boat. Many say they're afraid of water. Boat operators are offering swimming lessons to allay these fears, improve safety, and hopefully, of course, increase their bottom line.
Kai is a sea turtle who was found by a fisherman near the Kenyan coast. The reptile was floating on the surface, a sign that she was unwell. She's now being treated at a clinic for turtles in the town of Watamu.
When the turtle started defecating, this is when we realized the turtle had ingested some plastic. What usually happens if the turtle eats anything artificial that cannot be digested, then to some point the digestive system will shut down. So the food starts fermenting, building some gas, and eventually makes the turtle floating.
But Kai is not the only one suffering the consequences of pollution, which is threatening the entire marine ecosystem. The clinic takes care of dozens of other turtles that have ingested plastic. According to the World Wildlife Federation, some 9 million tons of plastic end up in the sea every year.
80% of all the litter in the ocean is plastic. And the plastic is, of course, a tremendous problem. And since 1960, 20 times more plastic is produced.
Residents in Watamu do what they can to alleviate the problem. Every week, a group of locals work together to clear plastic that washes up on the beach. The clinic rolls out regular awareness campaigns and has been teaming up with the local school's Marine Scouts program, where children are taught ways to rescue marine animals.
So we focus on turtles because they are endangered, but also they're quite a charismatic species. People like turtles. It's easier to get people to like turtles than maybe a ray or some kind of weird fish. But also because they're an excellent indicator species of ecosystem health.
After the scouts collect useful information about the turtles to help with their research, Kai is then tagged for identification purposes, ready to be released into the ocean once again.
Nearly 8,000 runners took part in this year's marathon in the Gabonese capital Libreville on Saturday. Kenya sported a winning duo, with Joan Kigan the first to cross the finishing line in the women's race and Peter Kurui claiming victory in the men's. Next week we go to Sierra Leone, where the government is offering visibly pregnant teenagers alternative classes after banning them from mainstream schools. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.